The mood is grim in Edmonton as the city comes to terms with what authorities are investigating as a terrorist attack. 5 people injured, 2 separate incidents, 1 lone suspect who is alive and in custody tonight. Terry Reith has more, joining us tonight from an Edmonton vigil in support of the victims and a show of unity in the face of terror. Terry.
Susan, this vigil is just now wrapping up, and in spite of the fact that it is just really cold and wet out here, a couple of hundred people turned out to show their support for first responders and to say, we will not be frightened by this act of violence.
944?
It is difficult to watch. A car runs a barricade outside a CFL game, then slams directly into an Edmonton police officer. Then the driver jumps from the car and begins brutally stabbing Constable Mike Chernick.
Even though he had been knocked into the air by the impact of the car, the police officer was able to fend off the attacker, which resulted in the attacker leaving the scene.
Police found a flag of the terrorist group ISIS inside the car. They set up roadblocks in the area. Hours later, a U-Haul truck was stopped. The driver gave his ID, but after police got suspicious, he sped off, triggering a police chase.
The truck drove left of center on several occasions, nearly T-boned at least one vehicle, and attempted to run over civilians who were crossing at crosswalks and alleys on Jasper Avenue.
As dozens watched in horror, the truck mowed down 4 people.
He came in, and he was going probably at least 60 or 70 turning, and there's a group of people standing out here probably smoking. It was like a loud thumping noise, and then you just saw it was either glasses or a cell phone just fly in the air.
Police used a maneuver to force the truck on its side, then smashed the windshield, but the man refused to give up.
So a conducted electrical weapon or taser was used to temporarily disable him.
Police arrested 30-year-old Abdullahi Hassan Sharif, a refugee from Somalia. He was flagged for extremist views and investigated by the RCMP 2 years ago, but there was not enough evidence to charge him. Police say they will now charge him with attempted murder and terrorism offenses. Remarkably, Constable Chernick was released from hospital and is expected to make a full recovery. 2 others have also been released. For many in Edmonton, it's unsettling.
Like I would have thought the next terrorist attack would have been in Tokyo or Los Angeles or something like that, not Edmonton.
Police say the man appears to have acted alone. They are still asking people to be vigilant. And here at the vigil, civic and religious leaders are calling for love and compassion and a total rejection of the fear and hate that terrorism is supposed to create. Susan.
Thanks, Terry. Terry Reith in Edmonton tonight. Political leaders across the country have condemned the attack and called for unity, and that includes Edmonton's Mayor, Don Iveson. I spoke to him earlier. Mayor Iveson, how concerned are you about any potential backlash against diverse or Muslim communities?
Well, unfortunately, we see this negativity out there in the world towards minority groups when something like this happens, but it's really unfair to take the actions of one lone sick person and cast them across other people who look similar or worship similar. And so I think what we're seeing from Edmontonians is a round refusal to participate in that and support for our diverse communities. The hashtag We Will Not Be Divided is trending all over the place. So I think overall the response will be one of love and inclusion for our community members, Somali and Muslim, and across the diverse spectrum who are also roundly rejecting this violence today.
Mayor Iveson, the suspect is a Somali refugee and he was known to RCMP back in 2015. What questions are you asking about why he wasn't flagged as more of a threat?
Well, I think as the as the investigation proceeds, we'll learn more about that. We're only just getting that information today from RCMP, and so certainly I'll have more questions about what sort of processes are in place for screening and following up, where any individual, regardless of their immigration status, shows tendencies towards radicalization. I think the issue here is radicalization, not immigration, and so my main questions are about radicalization and keeping tabs on individuals with tendencies towards hate, regardless of their cultural background or country of origin.
Mayor, did your office have any warning about a potential threat or attack on a public place?
This appears to have been a person acting alone, and so there was no intelligence. We had no elevated threat level prior to this, but I am so proud of the fact that our first responders sprang into action swiftly and decisively to protect their fellow citizens and protect each other, or were able to apprehend the suspect. And obviously the injuries and the impact to the victims and the injured officer are very distressing, and our hearts go out to them. But really it is miraculous what our first responders and police in particular were able to achieve last night into the late hours in containing this situation.
All right, Mayor Iveson, lots more in this investigation. Thank you so much. So what do we know about the man accused in these attacks? Briar Stewart has been digging into that part of the story.
Tonight, there are still a lot of questions about the suspect behind this attack and just how Abdullahi Hassan Sharif came to the police's attention in 2015. Back then, authorities got a tip that he was promoting extremist ideology. The RCMP launched an investigation. Sharif was interviewed and so were others, but they determined that there was insufficient evidence to lay a terrorism charge or issue a peace bond. Police say there was no indication that he was a threat to national security or could become violent, so the investigation ended right there. Security experts say with so many individuals on terrorism watch lists, not everyone can be monitored.
A lot of people express extreme views, whether they're, Islamic extreme views, neo-Nazi extreme views. The RCMP would have to employ thousands upon thousands of people to monitor these people. And this is the dilemma that faces a democracy. If someone espouses extreme views, when do we act as a democratic society and arrest that person?
Police are now questioning Sharif and searching several places, including his apartment. As we've heard, he was living in Edmonton as a refugee and is originally from Somalia. Radicalization has been a simmering issue in Edmonton's Somali community. In 2013, 3 cousins were believed to be killed after heading overseas to fight with ISIS. In the past, officials have called on the federal government for help to prevent young people from being recruited by terrorist groups. Late today, Edmonton's Somali community put out a statement saying it condemns the violence and is assisting police with the investigation. Briar Stewart, CBC News, Vancouver.
So the attacks happened over the course of 4 hours and along busy downtown streets. Here's a little more insight into how the night unfolded.
This is World Report. After a chaotic night in Edmonton, police say they are investigating what could be acts of terrorism.
A male, believed to be 30 years old, then jumped out of his vehicle and viciously attacked the Edmonton Police Service member with a knife. A struggle then ensued, during which the male suspect stabbed the officer several times before fleeing the scene on foot, northbound, down 92nd Street.
We've seen the all being chased by 14 cops.
You said 14 cop cars?
Yep.
Yeah. And how fast was it going down here?
70, 80 kilometers an hour.
He just started swerving and trying to hit people. And he hit 2 individuals that were just standing in the back alley there. And I could see these a pair of glasses or a cell phone go flying.
Alberta, we must stand together in defense of our loved ones, friends, and neighbors, and against anyone who seeks to divide us through fear, hate, and violence.
In a statement, the Prime Minister also characterized what happened in Edmonton as a terrorist attack. He said early reports indicate this is another example of the hate that we must remain ever vigilant against, and that we cannot and will not let violent extremism take root in our communities. We know that Canada's strength comes from our diversity, and we will not be cowed by those who seek to divide us or promote fear. The White House also condemned the attack, saying U.S. authorities are in touch with their Canadian counterparts and that their thoughts and prayers are with the victims. We will have more on this story. Our Sunday panel will tackle what this...
So, once again, terrorism has shown its ugly head in Canada. Well, let's start with the immigration thing. I know that the majority of people who immigrate to Canada are peaceful, law-abiding citizens. But I have to wonder how much screening is done, though. How much of an investigation is done into their criminal past, their criminal background, to ensure that they do not have criminal records. And if we don't already do it, maybe we should also be doing mental health screening too before letting anyone into Canada. You know, doing mental health assessments on people. And I even heard a Canadian politician, I believe out in Alberta, who was calling for vetting of people that want to enter Canada. In other words, interviewing them and determining how they feel about Canadian values and how they feel their feelings towards Canadian society. But I mean, when it comes to immigration, we had a whole bunch of Canadians that have... We had a whole bunch of people that crossed the U.S. border into Canada illegally, ended up being detained by Canadian police forces, but I don't know what's happened since then. Like, were they all returned to the States? I'm sure some of them were probably allowed to stay in Canada. How thoroughly were those people screened for things like their criminal background, any kind of affiliation with illegal groups, and again, any kind of mental health assessment done on these people? We really need to do more with people that want to enter Canada to make sure, to do our best to ensure that people entering Canada are not going to be a danger to Canadian society. I know there's still people that will slip through the cracks, and there's people that you can screen and investigate and interview very thoroughly, and they might still slip through the cracks. No system is perfect, but I think we've got to do more to ensure that we're not letting criminals into our country. And I know, yes, we have had previous terrorist attacks in Canada before, such as the Strathroy bomber Aaron Driver, who was planning to go into downtown London, Ontario, my hometown, lucky me, and commit a suicide bombing, it's believed, because he had a backpack full of explosives. So by all accounts, he was planning a suicide bombing in downtown London during rush hour. And we also had terrorist attacks that were committed up in Ottawa back in 2014 by a crazed gunman who murdered a Canadian soldier and then made his way into our Parliament building, firing off a gun like there was no tomorrow. And 2 days before that incident, there was another terrorist that used his car to deliberately run over 2 Canadian soldiers just near Montreal, Quebec. One of those soldiers died, another one ended up being injured. And I think it was about 2015, We had another terrorist that went into an armed forces recruiting office in Toronto with a knife and stabbed some people. Luckily, people only received very minor injuries. It really wasn't any... People were not seriously injured in that attack. I know with the Strathroy bomb or the Ottawa attack, the Montreal area attack, and the Toronto attack, that those terrorists were all born in Canada. So not all the terrorists that come into Canada are foreign or foreign born. And even with our local people, I guess we can do surveillance on them and everything. And maybe they should be sending undercover police officers into these mosques that they suspect might be preaching hate, hatred, and extremism. But it's not just law enforcement, and it's not just our intelligence agency, CSIS, that have a role to play in this. We as Canadians, as ordinary Canadians, if you have any reason to suspect that someone is planning some kind of crime or they're expressing hateful or extremist views, let the authorities know. Let the police know. It might just turn out to be a whole lot of trouble over nothing, but maybe not. You know, there is potential that by letting the authorities know about suspicious people that we might be able to thwart a terrorist act ourselves. We all need to do whatever we can to try and prevent as much terrorism as we can. We're not going to stop all of them, but maybe, just maybe, we might be able to stop some of them. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment. Thanks for watching.